Hey, what's up guys? I'm here to just make a quick video on talking about my obsession with cameras and why I like them so much. And a lot of time people can hear me talk about cameras and go off the idea like, why would you ever want something so expensive? And the idea is that it's what that camera can do for me overall and the flexibility of that camera. And a lot of people will look at me like, well, you don't vlog much, and I have not been recording much with my camera that I do have now. And they say that, isn't your camera good enough? Isn't that why you got it? One thing is, like, everyone's first camera is not gonna be the very last camera they're gonna have. The camera I use is good, don't get me wrong, but there's an extremely large amount of limitations that I have with this camera, and why the expensive cameras are expensive for a reason, and what makes them good to me. The expensive cameras are flexible in the sense that, like, I can record at any scenario, or at least the majority of them. Part of what make this camera kind of a great starter camera, great camera to broaden my skill, lighting, and how to use a camera in a specific scenario. The more expensive and the more flexible the camera is, the less ideal the situation have to be for the camera to be at its best. There are some cameras that, if it's anytime after dusk or dawn where the sun is going down, there's not much lighting, there's some cameras out there that are 100% borderline useless. This camera is not one of them. This actually camera does super well in low light. It's a Sony a7 II, and it's a full frame sensor, and that's part of the reason why it does good in low light. But the thing is, the limiting power of this camera is that you can't get great skin tones unless you have a great lookup table or a LUT, which I found one, and there's probably a couple more out there. I'm gonna keep searching for them. And along with that is ideal lighting, and that's the main thing that this camera taught me, is how to detail my settings and know what to gauge for ideal lighting. Now, if you get a color checking board, then you can get ideal lighting all the time because you can double check it. But when you're running and gunning and you're out and about and you're making the videos on the spot, sometimes it's kind of hard to do that, unless you have it with you at all times. I've learned to gauge it by eye of what to look for. And with these cameras, each of them delivers something that makes the video just that much better, that much more usable. And there's been a saying that, like, camera doesn't matter, the lenses do. And I'm closer on the fence of the opposite is better. Lenses don't matter as much as the camera does. Don't get me wrong, lenses matter. They matter in the sense of, like, performance of corner to corner. Like, I'd say a Zeiss lens is important because it's super sharp, and I'm the type to really like sharp images over creamy images. Like, for me, images that come from Zeiss and Sony are much better than the images that come out of Canon and their Canon glasses. Canon cinema glasses, by the way, not Canon RF glasses. The RF glasses are sharp. The one thing I do love is editing, and getting good material to edit with is awesome. It is just great. My camera shoots only in 1080p, and some people will look at my footage and they'd be like, that 1080p look awesome, and then it's more than enough for YouTube. It's more than enough for the people that's watching. And in a lot of cases, when I'm editing these videos and I'm getting really good results, and especially in outdoor settings, this makes me aware, like, the sensor and the Kodak of the camera really does matter to me more than anything else. So much so that, like, I drew over cameras more than I drew over lenses. Right now I'm recording with a kit lens, and I have my Nifty 50 right here, but a lot of time I don't shoot with it unless I'm taking photos, and also I'm running, gunning, and I'm recording something that's not myself. But even then, a lot of time I switch over to my kit lens because of the flexibility of the zoom, and a lot of the time I don't use the aperture 1.8 while running and gunning. Actually, a lot of the time I use around f4 to f22. I know you're thinking, like, that's way too much, that's not that cinematic. For me, color grading, Kodak, and clarity is actually what makes the image look cinematic. One of my favorite test footage from ARRI, the camera company, is from the footage of a slow-mo of a guy riding a skateboard, but everything was in focus, background and foreground, and it just looked cinematic to me. And shallow depth of field is not creative enough. Part of what makes the image good is also it's in the background, and I like a soft blur in the background, not really an intense nuclear blur. For photos, yes, they sometimes work, and sometimes f4 does work. And so when I see glasses that are, you know, like f4 or whatever, that really doesn't matter much to me as long as I can get my exposure right and the Kodak of the camera is good and I get the focal length I needed. That's really all that's much for me. The only lenses that are really are really noteworthy to me are Zeiss and Angenieux. Angenieux is the one lens company that I find to be so creative in the coating of the glass that it's actually pretty distinctive to make an image cinematic. But other than that, I prefer Zeiss or any cheap lens. Cheap lenses. A great camera that actually I really want to get, hopefully by February, is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K, and that camera runs for around like $2,500. I know it's expensive, but like it's a 6K raw camera. Like this camera shoots only 1080p, and I'm really learning the skill sets of making this as flexible as possible. And then imagine me getting a 6K camera. I can color grade it. It's sharper. The images will be just so great. And I watched a video of a guy using a kit lens, a cheap lens, to shoot with the Blackmagic 6K Cinema, and the Kodak was so strong and sharp, it actually pushed cinema quality images through a cheap lens. So a lot of time for me, lens makes a influence on the image, but not that much for me. The only time I would think and the lens really matter if you are doing a professional, or I would say literally client shoots, and you need sharpness across the board. I find that if you take a sharp lens and put, you know, filters on top, you probably could get the same results. That's just me. A capability of making movies anywhere. I've shot a lot of moments where I would meet with my friends and they absolutely love it. They absolutely love it that I was able to make a story and a timeline of all the events that we've been together. People look at Sony as a very confusing and complicated system to use. I say it's not. It is complicated if you are renting it and this is the first time using it. It is complicated if you have to use it immediately off the box and you never used it before. When you own the camera, when you spend a lot of time with it, when you used it many times, it's easy. Once you know everything, there's nothing hard about this camera for me. I had a friend that used this camera and called it complicated, and then he said, aren't there easier cameras you can buy? And I'm like, I don't need to, because every camera is easy once you have it, once you own it. I'm not saying your first camera should be a professional camera and you automatically better. Better camera does make better results, but also better use of that camera makes better results. And that's what, you know, these cinema cameras give. That's why I like them so much. They're so awesome. And then every year they just come out with stuff that are better, and then also the good stuff get cheaper. In 1080p with a kit lens, I'm getting great results, and I just can't imagine like just only like $1,000 more than what I pay for this, 10 times better. So I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. It has been great. Hopefully you guys subscribe. Please let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next one.